This is the image that I'm going to create a composite with. So composites can be a wide variety of images, and how you put them together is up to you. So I like to start with a base image, and I often find things when I'm out walking in nature or historic buildings that I like to use as my foundation image. So this is a little kind of like a gathering place for hikers on the Appalachian Trail. It's got a fireplace in the back. There's picnic tables. It's a nice spot to meet people or wait, and you could light a fire. There's a grill, and I just thought it was a really neat little scene. So I wanted to use this image to create a composite scene. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to make it look a little bit more like evening. I want to have fire, smoke coming out of the fireplace, little lighted windows. I'm going to try to do something with the grill, maybe with some embers, and add some pumpkins, some fall decor, and just kind of warm this place up and make it look like evening. So the first step that I do is I always start here in Lightroom in the Develop module. And I already made some minor edits to the image, so I'll show you those now. So this was the before. I did take this around 4 o'clock one day. It was still pretty light outside. So I just made some minor adjustments. I did a tone curve to bring down the shadows a little bit. I played with the temperature because I wanted to give it a little warmth. So you'll notice I just added a +5 to give it a little bit more of that warm look. I did add a linear gradient to the sky so that I could come in and darken that a little bit and make it a little more blue. So I also made those changes. And then I went down to the HSL panel and I increased the red, the orange, reduced the yellow, and the green. So this first step is just doing your basic edit. So I'm just making sure I have a clean image and that it's ready to go. The next step will be to take this into a program like Photoshop where you can add layers and pieces to it. Now, if you edit on an iPad, you can also do these types of composites using programs like Superimpose. There's other programs where you can add images on top of each other, and you can create those using apps, but I'm going to use Photoshop. So I've already got the image over here now in Photoshop, and you can see the image. Now I have the background copy, and I have made an extra copy of the image, and I want to save my original because we may need this as we work on the image. So part of this first step is to also clean up your image if there's anything you want to remove. And I do want to get rid of this light. It just stands out and I don't like it. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to start with the heel brush, and I'm going to come over really small, and I'm going to just go along this line and see if it will match the pixels. And this is what I find is usually the easiest way. I'm just going to come across here and try to remove that. Okay, so it made a hole in it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab the clone, and I got to make this smaller. And what we're going to do is we're going to start up here. You click the Option key, and we're just going to slide this down, and the clone tool is so good. You just have to work it really small and slow. I'm just going to line that up. We're going to correct that roof line. And then now I'm going to select one of these, let's see, this area of the shingle, the siding, and just come over with it and fill that in. And then I'll come down to this one, and I'm just going to come over, fill that in. Now my opacity is at 50%. I'm going to go ahead and take that all the way up. And let's go over that one more time. There we go. Now we're going to be adding texture and other things to this image, so it does not have to be exact. And actually, it's an old building. I just want to make sure I have this line straight, and I think that looks pretty good. Now there's a little bit of that up at the top. I'm just going to clean that up. Okay, now we can also come back and clean up this edge just a little bit. There we go. So if I pull back, it looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. Again, we're going to be adding texture and layers over this, so I'm not not worried about it. Now I just noticed I could also get rid, there are outlets in here, so I'm just going to take the clone tool and I'm just going to go up and we can just clean that up. Get rid of that modern technology and clean that line all the way up. Keep going over it. And great, we got rid of that. So now we can scroll the image. There is another electric box here in the window. I could try to clone that as well, but you have to kind of decide how much of something bothers you. But I think I will come over. I'm just selecting the pier that's behind it. I'm just going to actually darken it. I think will work. Let's just select below and just carry that beam. And then we need to clean this up a little bit. There, that's better. So if I turn this off, you can see the before, and now you can see the after. So I've just gone in and just, cleaned up a few things that looked a little unnatural. So that's what you want to do in this first step. Now, the next thing that I want to do, so I'm going to go ahead and let's just call this one our clone cleanup. I do like to label my layers. And now I'm just going to duplicate that layer. And this one I am going to call LUT. So we are going to add a color LUT, and that is where it's going to bring in other color tones to our image and help us get that evening look. So we're going to come down and do a color lookup, and that is going to get added right here on top. And what I want to do is I want to create a clipping mask so that it's clipped to this bottom layer. Now, when we go to load the LUT, you can load LUTs of your own, but there are plenty here in Photoshop that I really like. So the first one is I want to add fall colors. And then we can close out. And you'll notice that it's pretty bright. So what I'm going to do is you can try different blend modes. So hard light may work. I'm going to keep it on normal, but just reduce the opacity. So just want to bring that down. But you can see it softens the browns, just gives it a little bit more of that fall tinge. Okay, now I'm going to go down and add another color LUT, and we're going to do color lookup again. And this one, I want to create that clipping mask. And for this, I want to go in and I'm going to add the night from day. Now, this is going to be pretty dramatic, but what we're going to do again is we're going to reduce that opacity. We're just going to bring it down. Probably about 50%. Now, what this does, it brings in a lot of blue tones that are a little bit dark for me. So I'm going to grab the mask and I'm going to come over with my brush, have it on black because I want to reveal what's underneath. And I'm going to put about 50% opacity. And now with a large brush, I'm just going to remove some of that blue. Just a little bit of it. I just didn't like all of that kind of harsh blue tone. Okay, so now we've done our color adjustments. We cleaned up our image. So I'll show you again, that's before and that's after. So just giving it again some evening kind of warmth. We can also play with that opacity. I may want to bring it up a little bit more. Yeah, and as we go along, we may darken the image more if needed. Okay, so at this point, we've done all of these changes. What I want to do is I'm going to go to this LUT file and I'm going to rename, well, I may just leave the name. Let's do LUT/clone trees. Okay, so for this layer, what I want to do is I want to clone and fill in these blank spots in the sky. So I'm going to grab the clone brush, again, make it really large, and I'm just going to select with the target tool where you use the option key, and I'm just going to come in and overlay some more leaves and fall color. And you just have to kind of look at where you're selecting from and just kind of paste around. Continue to select from different areas and just filling in those gaps. You can always add like another branch and maybe a little bit more right here. So let's select from down here and then just kind of come up and overlay. And I may want to add some more right here. Yeah, just filling that in a little bit. So I'll show you now before and after. So just giving that a little bit more leaves and texture so that it's not taking away so much. Okay, so now we have our image at a really good starting place. The next things that I'm going to do are I want to work on adding the light, the smoke, the grill, and then we will start placing some other objects to bring this image to life. So at this point, I'm going to do what's called a stamped layer. I'm going to do Command, Option, Shift, and the letter E. It's called a stamped layer. So now everything I have underneath is still here, but we have a clean, stamped, almost like a flattened image to work with. All right, so in the next video, I'm going to walk you through how to add light, smoke, and we'll start working on our little grill over here. Okay, thanks everybody. Our second composite video, I'm going to walk you through adding light, fireplace light, chimney. We're going to work on this little grill and just start bringing this image to life. So in video 1, I walked you through making basic edits to your base image. So just getting the image ready for the look that you want. Now remember, when I create these composites, I'm not doing things exact because I'm going to add some texture on top and some additional features that will bring it all together. So you don't have to be absolutely perfect when you're doing this style of composite with your removing and cloning, which is the reason I like making these magical images this way. All right, so the first thing that I want to do before I get into showing you how I add light is I wanted to extend the canvas of this image. I didn't like that it was so close here in the foreground. So to do that, I'm going to grab the crop tool, make sure that content aware up at this top is selected. So we're going to select content aware, and then we're just going to drag this down to open up this area. Now, usually Photoshop does an excellent job of mimicking what's in your image. So we're going to click a check mark and cross our fingers that it works. And we'll see what it does. It's going to do it for us, and it did a really nice job. So it extended it, gave us some stone. It's a little off over here. So I think what I'll do is on this layer, I am going to go ahead and rename this. This is going to be our extend canvas. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab the clone tool, and I'm just going to select an area and just kind of smooth this grass over. There we go. So we can fix it. I do like the stones there. And may want to even bring a few more of those stones over. That looks pretty good. I think if we look at before and after, and I do like that it's now set back a little bit more. It gives us room to work with, adding some extra features to the image. Now I also notice I don't like this green shade right here. So I think we're going to have to work on that, and you just have to decide if you're going to address it now or address it later. One thing that we could do is we could clone some of this grasses around, and that actually might, it may really help it. Yeah, I'm just going to plop some of those in. Just kind of brings that scene together more. Yeah, just pop some of those there. Okay, so that took care of the grass. So sometimes you can just use the clone tool and make those adjustments. Okay, so let's duplicate this layer, Command J, and this one we're going to call, let's do the, we're just going to call lights, and we're going to work on it. All right, so to get started, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to add some light here as if there's the fireplace is burning back here, so some kind of golden light. So the first thing we need to do is select our color. So we're going to double click and get our colors to come up, and I'm going to go down to this, kind of an orange, I want it to look, a warm glow, and we're just going to have to play with it. So let's start maybe here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I want to select this window pane. And there's a couple ways that you can do this. So we can grab the polygon lasso. We can grab the lasso tool. The polygon sometimes can work really nice. So you just click and drag over, and then we're going to come down. We're going to go over. Now this is where it's going to be a little bit tricky because we have these grasses in the way. And then I'm going to go back up. Okay, so now we've got this selection. Now I'm going to grab the brush, and it's on the orange color that we selected, and I'm going to start with the opacity really, really low. And we don't need a big brush. And now I'm going to come in and add that golden light. So that looks pretty nice. Not too bad. I'm going to take that marching ants off. And now what we can do is I may add a mask, and I'm going to reveal what's underneath just a little bit. So I'm going to come down to this bottom. Let's flip it to white. And let's keep it on the black brush, maybe 20% opacity. Just going to bring back some of the bottom. Okay, now I want some of this light to spill. So now what I'm going to do is go to my dropper and reselect that color. Let's get back on our image. There we go. There's our color. And at this point, I want to spill that light a little bit. So I'm going to grab the brush, 20% opacity, and I'm just going to click it right outside this window, just a little bit. And then again, I can go to the mask if I think it's too much and take it back to black, and I can just, soften that. I don't want so much of that. Now at some point, I'm going to darken this image even more. I'm already feeling like it's a little bit bright, but I do like that glow. Now, if I wanted to add a little bit more glow to it, I'm going to go to my color picker. I'm going to click something a little bit lighter, maybe up here in the brighter colors. Click OK. And I'm going to take the brush, and I'm just going to pop a little down where maybe that fireplace glow is. There we go. And just make that spill out just a little bit. Okay, there we go. So that's what I'm doing there. Now, I like this color, and we need to add just a very little bit of light coming through these other windows because we know our fireplace is right here, and it's lit on the inside. I want to just bring a little bit more to this area. So I'm going to take the opacity to about 10%, and I'm just going to freehand this with the brush. So I'm just going to give this, it's going to be very, very subtle, you guys. Just a little bit of light coming off of that fireplace. And just pop it in here, very subtle. And you can just brighten the edges where maybe the light is falling off a little bit. And you could light these middle panes, a little bit more. Okay. Now for this window, I'm going to go back to it, and this is where I just keep kind of tweaking it. So I'm going to go to the mask, and we're on black, and the opacity is really low. I'm going to take the opacity up, maybe about 40%. I do want to take some of that off the top. There we go, just to give it that glow as if the fireplace is right there. All right, so I'm liking that so far. That's kind of the starting point. Now what I want to do is I'm going to start adding that smoke coming out. So I want to get a new layer. And so you have a couple options here. What we could do is just add a blank layer on top. And now I'm going to go to a white paint with my brush at 40%. And I am just going to start popping some smoke through here. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity, take it down to about 13, add some more. just to kind of make that. Now you can also go on to a clip art site or Unsplash and find some smoke. But I used to do that, and now I just try to freehand it and increase the opacity where I want it a little bit stronger, and just kind of make it look pretty natural with it kind of wafting through here. So again, we're going to be adding textures and some other things on top, so you can play with it. And then if you think you've got too much, you can also change the opacity, so we can blend that down a little bit. You can kind of modify it as you go and just shape it as you want it. Have a little smoke coming out here. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on this little fireplace, and I've got some images that I may bring in to see if I can make them look right. So let me go over to my download files, and what I'm going to do on my desktop, I have got downloads. I just downloaded some images, and I'm going to see which one may work for the little fireplace. So let's drag this one in on top. That's the pumpkin. So we don't want that one right now. Let me go back and let me see if this is the image. Yes, this is my ember image. So I am going to drag this one on top of my image, and now we're just going to make it really small, super tiny. So I found this image on Unsplash, which is where I recommend. You can get images for free. I'm not planning to sell or do anything with this, so it will be easy to, I don't need to worry about giving the artist any credit. All right, so we have to make this really tiny to get it to fit in here. So I'm just going to kind of move it around, and maybe I'll just set those embers right on top. Now I can enlarge it just a little bit. And once it's placed, now I can do a, I don't need that. I'm not sure why it told me that. I can now mask it. So I've got the artwork there. I'm going to add a mask. And with the black, I am going to clean it up. So let's zoom in so you can see and I can see. And I'm just going to make the brush smaller. And let's see, opacity needs to go all the way up. And I'm just going to come around and start cleaning that up to make it look like it's sitting in there. Now the beauty of masking is you can go back and forth with it. So I am going to flip it to white and bring back a little bit of that edge. Now what we can also do now is go back to our image, Command T. We want to do Command T to transform it, and I can make it larger. So now I can kind of bring that in, tuck it down there, and click Enter. And that's looking pretty good. I'm going to grab the mask again and flip it to black and just clean up these edges. Now, what I want to do is create a little glow around this. So I am going to go over to my color picker, and I'm going to grab that ember color, which is really bright orange, and I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to make the opacity really low. Let's start about 8 to 10%. And then I am going to come over. We need to add a layer on top of this, and I'm going to just pop in some of that orange glow around there. Just kind of brighten it all up. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, as if there's some fall off of that light. Getting it really fiery. And then we can just go to a mask and flip our mask to black, grab our brush again, and I'm still at 10% opacity, and just kind of blend that in a little bit. Maybe take it up to 50% opacity. Just kind of blending it. Now, if I want to pop this a little bit more, I could also, another way would be to brighten that. I think, let's pull the image back to see. Yeah, I think it needs to be a little bit brighter. So let's go to this layer. Let's go up to adjustment, and let's do a brightness on this. And let's increase the brightness. There we go. I'm taking it way up on that layer. So I'm just still on this layer that we did. Now I could also go down to the image layer. Let's click OK. That brightened it a little bit, but let's go back down to the image. I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Brightness. And, oh, I couldn't do that on that. Let's see. Well, there's the original image. So that's getting there. I still want it a little bit brighter, but we will, and I do think I also need to enlarge it. So I'm going to click on that again, do Command T, and make it a little bit bigger. Move it back over. Enter. And let's do our Command T. Move that around. This is where it gets tricky. You want it to look realistic, but you also kind of just want it to look like a fire. So this is where it's an example of I'm not loving this clip art. So I think I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to go see if I have another one or can find one on Unsplash that I like. So I'm going to see if I can do grill embers. And I'm going to see what I can find. That was the one that I used. Now this one is very similar to our image grill. So that may work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this one. You just click download photo. And now I'm going to go back to my image. I'm going to go to my files, and I've got my latest download. I'm going to bring that in on top. Let's scroll out. We're going to make it really small. And we're going to bring and place this on top of our grill. Now let's get our image back in here, zoomed in. I'm just going to make that pretty small, bring it down on top. And actually, if I left it like that, it looks like it's the grill instead of the one that we had. So let me add a mask, make sure I'm on black, and I've got the opacity at 50%. Probably need to take that opacity up, and I'm just gonna start, cleaning this up. And I think I can actually use this grill in place of the one that was there. It looks like a camp grill. And so let's zoom in some more. You can just go over. You can also take this up to 90%. We're just going to clean this up. So that kind of worked out. I was not planning that at all. Sometimes that happens. And clean up that bottom. Now I want to flip it to white. And I've got it at 90%. I don't want that. So that's going to be, we're probably going to have to clone this section. We're getting a little bit of the old grill right there. So I'm just going to go grab my clone tool, make it really small, and I'm just going to clone some of this grass right above here. Let's go over. We're going to need to clone on another layer. Yeah, so I think the fireplace Looks great. We just need to add a layer, and now I'm going to clone. So you have to remember, you can't clone, this is just the image we pulled in. So it's kind of hard to clone over that. And then I can come back here to my mask and go to the brush and just work on it. Now, not every piece that you add, oh, we're doing the wrong masking. Not every piece that you add is going to be challenging. I find that the smallest pieces are often the most challenging to work with in these composites, but it can also be a great rainy day activity to just come in and edit and kind of tweak things. So, let's get this. I'm going to do Command T again. I think I'm going to leave it where I have it. I still don't like this corner. So let's go to this mask again. There we go. We need that log coming out. All these embers. Flip it to black. Okay, I think that's going to be good enough. Clean up that tree trunk. And now we're going to be adding textures and stuff, but it looks like there's a nice fire going there. So you can see before and after. I think that worked out nice. So that's the first or the second phase of this image. So first phase, we removed some things, we cleaned up, we got our colors, an initial set of colors. In this second video, we've added this little grill working, it's working now. We've got some light, we've got some smoke. So in the third video, I'm probably going to try to add maybe a few pumpkins and just kind of make it look like it's a home scene. You could do something spooky with this. You could add animals, a deer. If you like to bring in some of your images, you could add a deer. We could add camping gear. You could make it any story you want. You could add people sitting right here. I don't do a lot of people images, but you could do that. You could have backpacks and camping gear. Really, you could tell any story that you want with this image. So we're going to move to the third video where I'm going to show you just adding those finishing touches. I'm also going to work on adding some texture and just making this image look like a painting or a story. All right, thanks everybody. Video 3, I'm going to put some finishing touches on this image. And as I mentioned in video 2, this is where you get to decide the story you want to tell. You could add campers' backpacks. You could add animals, deer, a deer coming out here. You could make it spooky. You could add people hanging out by the campfire. You could maybe replace this with a large bonfire. There's so many things. You could extend this canvas and add, a truck, or you can do anything you want with these composites. So I'm keeping this one really simple for those of you that might be new to doing composite images. So we're at a point now where we're going to do our step 3, adding those final touches and bringing the whole image together. So what I need to do now is I'm going to stamp down the layer again, Command, Option, Shift, the letter E. So now we have our fresh, this is going to be called our final stage layer. All right, so what we're going to do at this point, I have some images of some pumpkins and some other things that I want to see how they look, bringing them into the image. So I'm going to go over to my download file, and let's start with these pumpkins. It's October when I'm doing this image, and I just thought it might be fun to add some things that look like fall. And this was on some straw, so I thought maybe I could place these around. Gotta make it really tiny, and maybe just mix these in, maybe even up against this porch. So what I do is I just bring the images in, and then I just play with them to see how I can make them work. I'm going to click enter on that. So here's the image. Now I'm going to add my mask. And with a black brush, I'm going to reveal what's underneath, which is our stamped layer. I'm at 90%, and so I'm going to be able to, let me zoom in, come in and just bring back. Now, this is one way. I like to use the mask feature and just blend them in. You can also make selections. So I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. So, you know, that's not bad. I'm just kind of coming around and blending it into my scene. Then I'm going to flip it back to white, and I can just bring back some of that pumpkin. It's a little bright, these pumpkins, so I would have to adjust the light, which I really don't want to do on those. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that one, but I'm going to bring it in and show you how to make selections with it. Let's see what this one is. So these are some other pumpkins, and these may work. Yeah, let's try these. I like to do things where I don't have to make selections. So let's just bring these over, make them small. And you do have to try things. Not everything is going to work the first time. Maybe move them over here. Okay, let's enlarge. Let's click enter. Add our mask. And again, let's see, we need that to be on black. We're just going to come over. And you can just get your brush really small. Come around these edges. And just take your time coming around and masking. Again, if you prefer selections, then you could bring this image in and make your selections in Photoshop and then put that selection over. But I find that the masking is going to also make it look a lot more natural. Now this guy, I think, had a stem. Let's see if I can bring that back. Flip it to black. Make this really tiny brush. Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to show his little stem. And let's get this orange, flip it to white, and bring back the edge of this pumpkin. There we go. Go around this edge. Now, if you use a tablet or a pencil, this is where it gets really easy. Now, again, we're going to be adding texture over this, so I'm not worried about it too much. I just want to bring back some of the detail of these little pumpkins. Okay, so that one, that's not too bad. Now, it's still a little bit bright, but again, I'm going to modify the color tones, so I think that one's fun. So I had that one, and then I had another image with, let's see, this image is a dog with some pumpkins, which could be fun. So let's do this. Let's bring this image in. I'm going to actually bring it into, I don't want to bring it on top of this image, so let me delete that. I'm going to go to the image and I'm going to open it with Photoshop. So I'm going to bring the image straight into Photoshop as its own image. I'm going to duplicate the background layer, and this is where I'm going to show you using a selection. So I'm going to go select, and I'm going to try select subject. Okay, it looks like Photoshop did a great job with this. Really happy with it. So I'm going to do Command C to copy it. I'm going to go over to our image, and I'm going to do Command V to paste it. And it's going to tell you the profiles don't match. That's okay. Click OK, and there's our big dog and pumpkin. So I'm going to do a Command T to transform it. And now I can bring this down. I just love that dog. We got to make it tiny. We're going to decide where we're going to put him. We could put him out here in the woods. I think probably next to the house. I was kind of envisioning right here on the corner. You have to get your proportions right, and that sometimes is very challenging. Yeah, maybe just put him right there. We got to have it to scale. We got to think about the grill and the other pumpkins, and you know, how big is this dog? You want it to look realistic. So scale can be really hard. All right, so let's click enter. I'm going to scale back. That looks okay, but now he's just, you know, not as natural looking as I would want it to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a mask, flip it to black, and I'm going to go to 50% opacity, and I'm going to make the brush larger, and I'm just going to soften this edge. So I'm just softening it, bringing back what was underneath, which is some of those grasses. And I don't need to do any softening around him, but I just want the bottom. So I'm bringing back some of the grasses, and which makes it look like, and the stone, that they're sitting there. Much more natural. Yeah, so just coming around, do that little shadow, and those look pretty fun. I like him. I think he's adding a little bit to this story. Now these pumpkins are a little brighter, but that's okay. We're gonna fix all that. All right, so that's how you would go if you bring in an image. You can make a selection. There's other ways to make selections. I'm not going to walk through that in this video, but that would be a way you could make your own selection, bring it in, and then you've got another fun element for this fall scene. Okay, so the next step is I want to start blending everything together, and I want to add some textures, and there's so many ways to do this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do another stamped layer, Command Shift Option E, so that I have a clean part, and this is where I'm going to add some texture and some other things to the image. So you have several options. If you go to Filter here in Photoshop, there's lots of options under Stylize. You could add some oil paint. You could go to Texture. We would have to convert the image to 8-bit, but we could also add some texture. You could also use some other programs like Topaz Studio 2, where you could add some texture and things with that as well. So what I'm going to do, though, to stick with Photoshop is I'm going to go to my files, and I have a file of textures, and I am going to pick one to overlay. Now I have some that are distressed, and what I like to do is just kind of start picking one that I think may work. I'm going to try this mustard and olives, and that's probably not as dark as I want, so I'm going to delete it and go back, and let's see, brass saddle. Let's try the distressed skies. I'm going to see if I have something in here. I don't want anything, not liking that either. So let me go to a different stack. All right, so some of these are very, they're going to look weird when I pull them in. So these textures are kind of heavy, but it's the color tones that I'm wanting, the fall, and some of the textures. So I'm going to bring this in, click OK to transform it. And now I'm going to go to the blend mode. So I can try soft light. That's pretty nice. I could do screen, but if I do soft light, I can then change the opacity, and I can bring it really down. So that's just adding a little bit of some texture and some warmth to the image. So I can do a little bit of that. That one is nice, can turn it off and back on. So the other I could do is I could add a vignette. We could also just add texture to the roof if we wanted. So we could do that. We can go back to this layer, and I could also go to layer, image adjustments, and let's try a, I'm thinking that I want to do a curve, and yeah, I want to darken the image a little bit, and then I want to brighten the highlights, which I was hoping was going to brighten our light, but it's not. So I'm going to bring that back. Try just darkening the midtones just a tiny bit. See if we like that. Okay, I think it's getting there. Now these pumpkins are still too dark. So I do like this texture. I'm going to show you that's before and after. It's very, very subtle. But what I want to do now is I am going to add a layer, and I'm going to come over and I want to do a, actually I don't really need the layer. I'm going to delete that. Let's drag that to trash. I am going to add a curves adjustment, and I want to bring down the highlights, and I just want you to watch the pumpkins. Yeah, I'm trying to darken those. That's much better. Now what I'm going to do is Command I to invert the mask, grab the white brush at about 80-90%, and I'm just going to apply that to these pumpkins. Now you can see it's making them pretty dark, but that's okay. We did not want all that brightness. So we want to darken all of this a little bit, and even darken this path. Yeah. Making that look a lot more, even darken these stones. Go around anywhere where there's some light. So as you're working on your image, you're going to find things that you missed in your first round, and you can come back now and make those adjustments. Okay, so that took care of that part. So if you look now before and after, we've made those look a little more realistic, and we've got that warmth in our scene that we like. So I could be finished with the image at this point. I can add some more fun things. I did think about adding a stack of wood. So let's go do that one. So as you're working, there may be things that you decide that you want to add. Let's see if this is the image. Oh no, I'm in the wrong file. Let's go back to our downloads, and I think I had a stack of wood right here. Yeah, stack of wood, but it has some snow on it, so that's not going to work with this image. It's not realistic. This is more fire, which we don't need, and I don't think I had any more wood. So I'm just going to leave it at this point. Again, you could keep adding things if you wanted to the scene to make it look homey. Now I did add one texture. I am going to show you where I could also take this image. At this point I'm going to do a stamped layer, Command Option Shift E, and I could take this image to Topaz Studio 2, which I love to use for a painterly look. So I'm going to bring it in here, and this is also where I can add some extra texture on the roof if I want to. So I'm going to come over to Add Look, and you can see there's so many options here. This just is going to give it a really painted, painterly look. We bring down the opacity, and you can see how that just kind of brings it all together. So that's one way if you want to use features like something in Topaz to really make your image creative and interesting. So we could try this Dagos one. I always bring the opacity down, and each of these are going to do a little something different, but it's really giving us that final look, and it's fun to do. This happy little trees, that one looks like it's going to be neat too. Let's bring the opacity down. Oh, that one's really, really magical too. It's just giving you that impressionistic look on the leaves and all around. So if you don't have a program like Topaz, you can also do oil paint. You can add some other textures, and you can even use brushes in Photoshop to create these final images. So I hope you have fun playing with this image. Remember, the original image and the ones that I added are in the description, a link where you can play with this image yourself. And if you create something magical with it, I'd love for you to send me an email and let me see it. Thanks, everybody.